Hello everyone, I'm Cookie. Many competitive team games have roles. We love roles like healer, tank, DPS, because they tell us what to do for our team. They help us understand our individual priorities while working together more cohesively. Splatoon does not have any roles built in, and your priorities as a team constantly change during a match, so you're gonna end up doing everything at least some of the time. You can't assign yourself a static role. So what do we mean when we use terms like Slayer, Skirmisher, and Anchor? Which of these do you fit into? And should you be playing that way for the whole match? This is everything you need to know about weapon roles in Splatoon. And if you learned something new, please like and subscribe for more guides like this and to support the channel. Before we start, the terms we use in competitive play come from a super old document by FLC called Fluid Roles and Priorities. If you're a big fan of reading or want some more details, go check it out, link in the description. So first, if you take nothing away from this video, know this: Splatoon does not have static roles. You can't fit your weapon into a neat little box with one job to do. Different situations call for different tactics, and the game's just too fast and dynamic for traditional roles to work. You should not play the same way the whole match. But again, we like roles. We like having a framework that tells us what our priorities are, because it helps us work better as a team. So, the competitive community has their own system of dynamic roles, which help us align our play to our priorities. These are called Anchor, Skirmisher, Slayer, and Utility. You might have heard people use backline, midline, and frontline, but those describe your effective range. These are playstyles, ways of thinking, which focus on one of the major priorities of winning a Splatoon game. They apply to all the PvP game modes and are most effective in a pre-made team setting, but they can still inform your thinking in solo queue. We're going to explore each of these in detail and how they play off each other. And I can't stress this enough, your playstyle is not static. Your weapon has its specialties, but you will switch according to your team's priorities at any given time. You're gonna use them all at least some of the time, so it's important to know how they all work. The first playstyle is the Anchor, the backbone of your team and your last line of defense. Your goal is to stay alive and prevent your team from wiping out if anything goes wrong, which in this game happens often and quickly. Wipeouts give the enemy free map control, a bunch of objective points, and the opportunity to spawn camp. It's pretty much the worst thing that could happen to you. So if 2 or 3 players go down, it's an Anchor's job to anchor the team down by staying safe, maintaining presence on the map, and providing super jumps to the rest of the team. Of course, you can't just hide somewhere the whole time, you have to have some impact on the game. So, an Anchor's goal is to be as effective as possible while staying as safe as possible. You need to control and deny space from enemies while prioritizing safety, which means taking positions as far forward as you can before putting yourself at risk. These are often high ground perches that give you plenty of sight over ledges and open spaces while letting you retreat behind them if necessary. The challenge in anchoring comes from juggling your priorities. Staying alive is more important than influencing the match, so if an enemy gets close to you, you're forced to retreat and give up space, or risk losing your team's backbone. People like to fight anchors by forcing them out of position with specials or bombs. They won't necessarily kill you, but they will reduce your effectiveness for a while. So obviously, long-ranged weapons such as charges, splatlings, and the like specialize in anchoring. With their exceptional range, you can threaten enemies from far enough away that you're still safe from harm. This forces enemies to pay attention to you, take cover, and play slower. Some of these weapons need you to charge them before attacking, and since you're positioning for safety already, you can just charge behind cover and pop out only when it's time to fire. And most importantly, they are played at the back line of the team, so if anything goes south, they are the least likely to die and have the best chance of retreating before an enemy can get close to them. That's why people call them anchor weapons, and is also why the word backline has become synonymous with anchor. Now, not everything's gonna go your way, you're gonna make mistakes. What happens if your anchoring player dies first? This happens a lot, especially in Splatoon 3, where specials can just delete you if you don't keep track of them. This is where you have to shift playstyles. Someone else on the team has to take the anchor's place until they come back. Who that should be depends on who's alive and best suited for the task, but someone has to do it, because if you keep playing offensively without anyone anchoring the team down, you will wipe out if anything goes wrong. Any weapon can anchor, it's just that long-range weapons are best at it. Even in compositions without a backliner, someone has to anchor to prevent a wipeout, even though they won't be as effective as a dedicated backline weapon. If you find yourself anchoring temporarily, remember to prioritize your safety. Throw bombs to deny space and prevent enemies from pushing up, shark to stay out of sight, and stay out of engagements. You can push back up once your specialist returns. The next playstyles are the Skirmisher and the Slayer. These two go hand in hand to force enemies into engagements and to take them out. Ever heard someone say, good players win 1v1s, great players win 2v1s? Well, here's your two. They're often called a fighting pair, although the players in this pair will be different every fight. Remember, these are just playstyles. You will be switching to or between them depending on the situation, so you gotta know how they think. Let's start with skirmishing. If the team's first priority is to not wipe out, your next priority is to engage the enemy. You don't want to just let them do whatever they want. You have to resist, distract them from their own goals, whether that's playing the objective or fighting you on their own terms. So, a skirmisher's goal is to force enemies into fights that their teammates can take advantage of. You have to be annoying, play like a thorn in their side that they're forced to pay attention to, and, if they don't, punish them for ignoring you. However, and this is important, a skirmisher has to make sure they don't lose the fights they start. Basically, fight enemies without dying. If you go in for kills without any sort of advantage, that's feeding, so you're the one who creates that advantage for your teammates. You're like the bridge between defense and offense, the setup for a good push. This means you need to be threatening enough that enemies will actually be scared of you, but also able to sustain yourself for long enough that your mates can sweep in and get the kills. And of course, you need to recognize when a fight is a lost cause and disengage or super jump out, ready to find the next opportunity to fight again. A lot of weapons can skirmish, especially those with mid-range or even those that are good at slaying. Again, there's a lot of crossover between the playstyles. But the ones that truly specialize in skirmishing have methods to sustain themselves when engaging in fights by themselves. Brellas and splash wall weapons like 96 Gal and Squeezer use shields to tank damage and hold on to good positions. You could even use Big Bubbler or Ink Vac for this purpose, although very temporarily. Long-range dualies like Tetra Dualies and Dualie Squelchers use dodge rolls and maneuverability to evade damage while staying on the offensive or to retreat. Sloshers and Rapid Blasters strike from terrain such as ledges or corners, where they can harass enemies while being safe behind cover. And even just speedy weapons with mid-range, like Splatana, Wiper, and Stamper, are great at threatening kills safely while keeping their distance. As long as you're able to sustain yourself and recognize when to disengage, you can skirmish. Once a skirmisher forces a fight, it's a Slayer's priority to sweep in and secure the kills. That's all there really is to it. Winning fights lets you take control of the map, allowing you to actually push the objective. Splatoon is a fast-paced game, and your opponents will surely take any opportunity to play faster than you, so you can't just dawdle. Winning fights is how you win games. Once your team has their footing, and the enemy's distracted and disoriented, a Slayer rushes in from a different angle, holds the trigger, and mows them down before they even realize you're there. This sounds easy, but you need to be really consistent and decisive to be a good Slayer. You have to take advantage of fights when you see them, and quickly and reliably slay enemies before they can hurt the rest of your team, who's risking their lives so you can be spoon-fed kills. If you're too slow, they could react to you and try to trade kills with you, and then it's downhill from there. Your team has to slow down and play defensive. It's a playstyle that requires quick thinking and efficiency. On that note, weapons that excel at slaying are ones that are easy, have a fast time to kill, and don't leave you vulnerable. These are your quick shooters like Splattershot and 52 Gal, Tri-Slosher, short-range dualies and blasters, and the like. Notice how the most effective killing machines are short-ranged? That's why we have this whole Skirmisher Slayer setup. Getting in range is the hard part, and if someone's taking the enemy's attention, you'll have a nice big opening for a Twitter clip. Follow me on Twitter, link in the description. So those are the offensive specialists. It's important to remember that these are very fluid playstyles, and if you specialize in one, you will end up playing the other throughout the match. If you're slaying and don't kill someone immediately, you have to start skirmishing, or else you'll die and lose the fight. And if you're skirmishing and the enemy ignores you, or gets distracted by another teammate, you can punish them by moving in and getting the kill. This dynamic of swapping playstyles is how you win 2v1s. Coordinate with your teammates to move in together, win fights, and take space on the map. And finally, if someone using these playstyles goes down, the remaining players, minus the anchor who's trying to stay safe, have to shift their playstyles temporarily. Any fight you take without someone skirmishing and slaying will be an even or losing matchup, so it's better to go on the defensive and focus on not losing fights. Paint, build your special, and hold enemies back until you have enough players back up to go offensive again. Remember, you can fill these roles with plenty of different weapons, but you won't play them as well as a specialist. Finally, we come to utility. The utility playstyle is a bit of a jack of all trades. Your goal is to make it easier for the team to do their thing through useful actions that mostly don't involve fighting. But if the opportunity arises, you'll switch to a Skirmisher or Slayer playstyle to help your team win engagements. That is the most important thing about utility. It's the least important playstyle to maintain. You can do fine without a utility player for a bit, your job is to make things easier for the team, but not without any of the other roles, as that would make any fight you enter disadvantageous. A utility specialist will always be the first to drop their playstyle and cover for their teammates until everyone comes back. This effectively means that to play utility well, you and your weapon have to be at least competent in skirmishing or slaying, in addition to boosting the team when everyone's alive. It also means that it's one of the hardest playstyles, because you have to flex into all the other roles at a moment's notice. Your supportive options depend on the weapon you're playing and what your team needs, so let's see some examples. First, paint everything you can reach. When skirmishers and slayers push forward, they don't have time to paint up, they need to keep up the pace. So it's very helpful to clean up behind and around them so everyone has space to move around and retreat in future fights. Bomb spam is a staple of utility. Bombs are lethal and you can't just ignore them, so throwing them at places you want to keep enemies away from while your teammates fight will help you control space more effectively. This also paints in front of your mates, making fights easier for them. Examples of good bomb spots are sniper perches, choke points, and literally just in front of enemies. They can't just walk forwards, so you'd be slowing down their push. Supportive subs like beacons and point sensors are also great at helping your team, but it's usually best for a utility specialist to go with lethal bombs, as they're much more versatile. Bombs are just better at everything in this game. Next, special spam. Now, everyone on your team should be using their specials effectively, if they want to win, that is. But utility players often have utility specials, such as Tacticooler, Tentamissiles, or Inkstorm. These help in fights away from your main weapon's effective range, and make your presence felt across the map. Charging and popping them at the right time for your teammates to use in fights is extremely valuable, especially when it's frequent. Now before we wrap up, one last thing. Who plays the objective? The answer? Everyone. It's all situational and mode dependent. What did you expect? This entire game is fluid. Everyone can paint splat zones, so you don't need a dedicated zone painter. The Tower Rider could be an anchor, while the rest of the team makes space in front of it, or a utility player, while the anchor takes a more advantageous spot, or a fighter who needs to fight on the tower. The Rainmaker Carrier could be your team's slowest weapon, or whoever doesn't have, or isn't close to having, their special charged, since you actually want to be able to use it. And in Clan Blitz, everyone should be picking up clams, but depending on how many you have, you may choose to either hold the front lines or go back to pick up more. And even then, there are edge cases, such as when you only need a few points to get a lead, or time is running out, or players are stuck out of position and can't help out. Remember that this is a fluid system, and only serves to guide your thinking as you coordinate with your team. Use these playstyles to boost your own play as you climb the ranks, and help you coordinate in pre-built team settings. Top players constantly switch playstyles based on positioning, special charge, how damaged they are, objective status, advantage state, etc. Everything in this game is situational and fluid. I hope you'll take that knowledge with you. Thank you very much for watching. If you learned something new, please subscribe for more guides like this and to support the channel. And if you're still here, let me know which playstyle fits you the best down in the comments. This was your local Aussie high-level player. See you later.